The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of species gathered for an emergency session. At the center of the vast circular room, Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire stood tall, his four arms crossed in a gesture of supreme confidence. His scaled skin gleamed under the artificial lighting, and his reptilian eyes surveyed the assembled delegates with barely concealed satisfaction. "Honored members of the Council," Kethvar began, his voice carrying the subtle hiss that marked all Zephyrian speech. "Today marks the end of human expansion into our territories. Today, we demonstrate why the Zephyrian Empire has remained unconquered for 3 millennia." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The humans had been making waves in galactic politics for only 50 years since their first contact. But in that short time, they had managed to establish colonies on 17 worlds and forge trade agreements with nearly every major species. Their rapid expansion had made many established powers nervous, but none more so than the Zephyrians. Ambassador Chen Wei, the human representative, sat quietly in her designated section. Her dark eyes remained fixed on Kethvar, but her expression gave nothing away. She had been expecting this moment for weeks, ever since intelligence reports suggested the Zephyrians were planning something significant. "The humans," Kethvar continued, "have proven remarkably resilient to conventional warfare. Their adaptability is troublesome, but every species has a weakness, and we have discovered theirs." He gestured to an aide who wheeled forward a small containment unit. Inside, a crystalline vial held what appeared to be ordinary water. "Behold, Vexithorium," Kethvar announced, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper. "The most perfect poison in the known galaxy. Colorless, odorless, tasteless, and absolutely lethal to every oxygen-breathing species ever tested. It penetrates any biological filter, neutralizes any immune system, and kills within minutes of consumption." The chamber fell silent. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The reputation of Zephyrian biotechnology was well known throughout the galaxy, and their poisons were legendary for their effectiveness. "We have tested Vexithorium on tissue samples from 47 different species," Kethvar continued. "Every single test resulted in immediate cellular breakdown. The poison doesn't simply kill, it completely destroys the victim's ability to process oxygen at the molecular level. There is no antidote. There is no cure. There is no survival." Ambassador Chen finally spoke, her voice calm and measured. "And you intend to use this against human colonies?" "Indeed," Kethvar replied with obvious pleasure. "Our vessels are already en route to the human agricultural world of New Eden. The planet's water supply will be contaminated within the week. 40 million humans will be dead within days of consumption. We will then offer the remaining human territories a choice: complete withdrawal from all disputed sectors, or watch world after world fall to Vexithorium." The Trillian ambassador, a being of pure energy contained within a crystal housing, pulsed with agitation. "This is genocide, Admiral. The Council cannot sanction such action." "The Council need not sanction anything," Kethvar replied coldly. "This is a bilateral dispute between the Zephyrian Empire and humanity. We are merely demonstrating superior biological warfare capabilities." Chen stood slowly, drawing all attention to herself. At average human height, she was smaller than most beings in the chamber, but something in her posture commanded respect. "Admiral Kethvar, before you commit your forces to this action, perhaps we should test your poison's effectiveness on humans directly." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Several delegates immediately began protesting, but Chen raised her hand for silence. "You claim Vexithorium is lethal to all oxygen-breathing life," she continued. "Surely a controlled test would be more efficient than poisoning an entire world. If your poison works as advertised, I will personally recommend that the Human Federation consider your territorial demands." Kethvar's eyes narrowed. He hadn't expected this response. The human was either calling his bluff or displaying a level of bravery that bordered on insanity. Either way, he couldn't back down now without losing face before the entire council. "You would volunteer for such a test?" he asked. "I would insist on it," Chen replied firmly. "If Vexithorium is truly as lethal as you claim, then humanity faces inevitable extinction anyway. Better to confirm its effectiveness here, under controlled conditions, than to sacrifice 40 million innocent lives on New Eden." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the usually vocal Centaurian delegation had stopped their constant chattering. All eyes were fixed on the small human woman who had just volunteered to die for her species. Kethvar felt a moment of uncertainty. In 3 centuries of military service, he had never encountered an opponent willing to face certain death so casually. But his pride wouldn't allow him to refuse the challenge. "Very well," he said finally. "If the Council agrees to witness this demonstration, we will conduct the test immediately." The Council voted quickly, with only a few abstentions. Medical teams from 3 neutral species were called in to monitor the proceedings, and within an hour, everything was prepared. Chen sat calmly in the center of the chamber as medical scanners verified her baseline health. Her vital signs were steady, showing no indication of the fear that most beings would feel facing imminent death. The Zephyrian biotechnology teams prepared the Vexithorium sample under strict supervision, ensuring that there could be no accusation of deception. "The dosage we're administering," explained Dr. Zixtal, the Zephyrian chief biotechnician, "is 1/10 of what we consider a lethal dose for most species. Even this small amount should prove fatal within 15 minutes. Chen nodded. "And if I survive?" "Impossible," Kethvar interjected. "No oxygen-breathing organism has ever survived exposure to Vexithorium. The poison attacks cellular respiration at the mitochondrial level. It's like removing oxygen from the air you breathe, except it happens inside every cell simultaneously." "I understand," Chen said simply. Dr. Zixtal approached with the crystalline vial, now diluted to what they believed was a survivable level for testing purposes. The liquid inside looked no different from pure water. Chen took the vial and held it up to the light. "To scientific advancement," she said with a slight smile, then drank the entire contents in one smooth motion. The chamber held its collective breath. Medical monitors displayed Chen's vital signs on screens visible throughout the room. For the first minute, nothing changed. Her heart rate remained steady, her breathing normal, her brain activity consistent. "The poison requires time to circulate through the bloodstream," Dr. Zixtal explained, though his voice carried a note of nervousness that hadn't been there before. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Chen sat quietly, occasionally checking her watch. The medical monitors continued to show normal human vital signs. Whispers began to circulate through the chamber as delegates started to realize that something unprecedented was happening. "There must be an error," Kethvar snarled. "The human must have taken some kind of antidote beforehand." "That's impossible," replied Dr. Morden, the Centaurian medical chief who was overseeing the neutral monitoring team. "We've been scanning her continuously. There are no foreign substances in her system except for your poison, which is definitely present in her bloodstream." 15 minutes passed, then 20. Chen stood up and stretched, showing no ill effects whatsoever. "Perhaps," she said conversationally, "there's something about human physiology that your tests didn't account for." Kethvar's scaled features flushed darker with anger and confusion. "Increase the dosage," he commanded. "Give her a full lethal dose." "Admiral," Dr. Zixtal protested, "that amount would kill any being in this chamber within minutes." Then we'll finally prove our point, Kethvar snapped. Chen shrugged. I'm willing if you are, Admiral. Though I should mention that I had a rather large breakfast this morning. I hope that won't interfere with your poison's effectiveness. The casual comment sent a chill through the chamber. This human was treating potentially lethal poisoning as if it were a minor inconvenience. Either she was completely insane, or she knew something that the Zephyrians didn't. Dr. Zixtal prepared a second dose, this one containing enough vexithorium to kill a dozen beings of Chen's size. His hands trembled slightly as he handed her the vial. The human's calm acceptance of what should be certain death was deeply unsettling. Chen drank the second dose as casually as she had the first. This time there was an immediate reaction on the monitors, but not the one anyone expected. Instead of the cellular breakdown that should accompany vexithorium poisoning, the readings showed increased metabolic activity. Fascinating, Dr. Mordun observed. Her cellular respiration is actually improving. It's as if her body is using your poison as food. The implications hit everyone in the chamber simultaneously. The Zephyrians hadn't discovered humanity's weakness. They had accidentally identified something that made humans stronger. Kethvar stared at the monitors in disbelief. His perfect weapon, the poison that had never failed, was not only useless against humans but actually seemed to benefit them. 3 millennia of Zephyrian biological superiority had just crumbled before his eyes. Chen stood up again, this time with noticeably more energy than before. Her cheeks had gained color, and she moved with the fluid grace of someone in peak physical condition. "Thank you for the demonstration, Admiral," she said politely. "I feel remarkably refreshed, though I should probably contact New Eden and let them know they're about to receive a shipment of what humans might consider a rather exotic health supplement." The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates began to understand the full ramifications of what they had witnessed. The Zephyrian Empire's ultimate biological weapon was useless against the species they intended to destroy. Worse, it might actually make humans more dangerous. But the real shock was yet to come. As Chen prepared to leave the chamber, she paused and turned back to face Kethvar. "Admiral, there's something else you should know about humans," she said quietly, her voice carrying clearly despite the chaos around them. "We've been aware of vexithorium for quite some time. Our intelligence networks aren't as primitive as you might think." Kethvar's eyes widened. "Impossible. Vexithorium is classified at the highest levels of Imperial security." Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. 3 months ago, a Zephyrian defector provided us with complete documentation of your biological weapons program. We've been preparing for this day ever since." The Admiral felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Preparing how?" "Well," Chen said thoughtfully, "it turns out that when you reverse engineer a poison that's essentially concentrated cellular energy, you can create some very interesting applications. Our biotechnology teams have been quite busy." She gestured toward the chamber's main viewing screen, which suddenly came alive with an image of the Zephyrian home system. But something was wrong with the picture. The space around Zephyr Prime, the Empire's capital world, was filled with ships, human ships. "The third human fleet has been in position around your home system for the past 6 hours, Chen explained conversationally. "We wanted to see if diplomacy was possible before taking more direct action." Kethavar's 4 arms began to tremble. "You're bluffing. Humans don't have the capability to threaten our core worlds." "Admiral," Chen replied, "you've just spent the last hour demonstrating that you don't understand human capabilities at all. Perhaps it's time to reconsider what else you might have gotten wrong." The viewing screen shifted to show a close-up of the human fleet's flagship. On its hull, clearly visible, was text in both human and Zephyrian script. "Diplomatic mission, New Eden Welcoming Committee." "You see," Chen continued, "when we learned about your planned attack on New Eden, We decided to return the favor. But unlike your approach, ours comes with options. She walked closer to Kethvar, her small human frame somehow seeming more intimidating than his imposing reptilian bulk. Option 1. You immediately recall your forces from New Eden and begin negotiations for a peaceful settlement of our territorial disputes. Option 2. You proceed with your attack, and we demonstrate what humans can do when we stop being diplomatic. The chamber had fallen completely silent again. Every delegate was staring at the confrontation between the human ambassador and the Zephyrian admiral, realizing they were witnessing a pivotal moment in galactic history. "What guarantee do I have," Kethvar asked through gritted teeth, "that you won't attack our worlds regardless of what we do?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "Admiral, humans prefer peace to war. We'd rather trade with the Zephyrian Empire than conquer it. But we won't be intimidated, and we won't allow innocent people to be massacred because you underestimated us." She gestured to the vial that had contained the Vexithorium. "Your poison taught us something important today. What you see as a weakness, we see as strength. What you designed to kill us, we can use to grow stronger. Perhaps it's time for the Zephyrian Empire to learn that humans aren't just another species to be conquered." Kethvar looked around the chamber, seeing the expressions on the faces of dozens of galactic representatives: fear, awe, calculation, but no longer dismissal. The humans had just demonstrated capabilities that no one had suspected, and they had done it without firing a single shot. For the first time in centuries, the Zephyrian Empire was facing an opponent that couldn't be intimidated by biological warfare. Worse, they were facing an opponent that had turned their greatest weapon into a source of strength. The Admiral's shoulders sagged slightly as the reality of the situation settled over him. "What do you want from us?" Chen smiled, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. "A fair negotiation, Admiral. Nothing more, nothing less. Humans are reasonable people when given reasonable terms." As the implications of the day's events continued to ripple through the chamber, one thing became clear to every observer. The galaxy's balance of power had just shifted dramatically. The age of human expansion was far from over. It was just beginning to reveal its true potential. Admiral Kethvar stood in the war room of his flagship, the Conquering Talon, staring at displays that showed the impossible. 3 weeks had passed since the humiliating demonstration in the Galactic Council chambers, and the situation had only grown worse for the Zephyrian Empire. "Report," he commanded, his voice lacking its usual authority. General Scythron, his chief tactical officer, approached with obvious reluctance. "Sir, our intelligence division has completed their analysis of human capabilities. The results are disturbing." "Show me." The main holographic display activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of human-controlled space. What had been 17 colonies 3 weeks ago now showed 23, with 3 more systems showing human survey ships and construction vessels. "They're expanding faster than ever," Kethvar observed. "Yes, sir. But that's not the worst of it." Scythran manipulated the display, zooming in on specific systems. "We've intercepted communications suggesting that news of the Vexithorium incident has actually attracted more species to seek alliance with humanity." Kethvar's scaled brow furrowed. "Attracted them? Why?" "Because, sir, they see humans as the first species to successfully resist Zephyrian biological warfare. Several minor powers are now requesting human protection against potential Zephyrian aggression." The Admiral slammed his fist against the display console, causing several nearby officers to flinch. "We haven't used biological weapons against anyone in decades." "No, sir, but the fear of our capabilities has been one of our primary diplomatic tools. If humans can neutralize our biological weapons, other species believe they might be able to learn similar defenses." Kethvar turned away from the display, his mind racing. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled through superior biotechnology for 3 millennia. Their reputation for having poisons and diseases that could wipe out entire species had kept dozens of civilizations in line without the need for actual warfare. Now that reputation was crumbling. "What about the fleet positions around their home territories?" he asked. "Unchanged, sir. Human vessels remain in defensive positions around their core worlds, but they haven't made any aggressive moves. However," Saithran hesitated. "However what?" "Our intelligence suggests they're not just defending, sir, they're studying." "Studying what?" Saithran activated another display, this one showing intercepted human communications. "They've been analyzing samples of vexithorium that Ambassador Chen took from the council chambers. Our xenobiology experts believe they're trying to understand how their physiology processes the compound." Kethavar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. "Are you suggesting they're weaponizing our own poison?" "We don't know, sir, but there have been reports of unusual human activity in several systems. Industrial facilities being constructed on worlds with no apparent strategic value, massive shipments of raw materials, and communication blackouts in entire sectors." The Admiral walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere in this vast galaxy, the humans were planning something, and he had no idea what it was. The uncertainty was more terrifying than any enemy fleet. "Sir," another officer interrupted, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Zephyr Prime. The ruling circle wishes to speak with you immediately." Kethavar closed his eyes. He had been dreading this call for days. The ruling circle, the 5 ancient Zephyrians who governed the Empire, did not tolerate failure. They had ruled for over 500 years each, and their patience was measured in centuries, not the brief spans that shorter-lived species considered reasonable. "Put them through." The holographic display shimmered and resolved into the forms of the 5 ruling circle members. Their scales had long since turned the deep black of extreme age, and their eyes held the cold intelligence of beings who had outlived dozens of galactic civilizations. "Admiral Kethavar," spoke Elder Vex Thul, the Circle's senior member. "Your failure has brought shame upon the Empire." "Honored elders," Kethavar replied, bowing deeply, "the humans proved more resilient than our intelligence indicated." "Resilient?" Elder Morgoth's voice carried dangerous undertones. "They turned our most perfect weapon into a health supplement. This goes beyond resilience into the realm of the impossible." "Perhaps, honored elders, we need to reconsider our approach to dealing with humanity." "Indeed we do," Elder Vexthul agreed, "which is why we are relieving you of command." Kethavar's blood ran cold. "Elders, please reconsider. I have served the Empire faithfully for 3 centuries. And in one afternoon, you undid 3 millennia of careful reputation building," Elder Sixerin interjected. "The galaxy now sees us as ineffective. Worse, they see humans as our superiors in biological adaptation." "Who will command the fleet?" Kethavar asked quietly. "Elder Zixthara will personally oversee the next phase of human relations," Vex Thul announced. The mention of Zixthara sent a ripple of fear through the entire bridge crew. Even among the ruling circle, she was considered dangerous. Her experiments in biological warfare had created horrors that even other Zephyrians feared to contemplate. "Elders," Kethavar said desperately, "perhaps diplomatic solutions should be explored before—" "Diplomacy?" Zixthara's image stepped forward, and her voice carried the subtle hiss of suppressed violence. "The humans have made us appear weak before the entire galaxy. There can be no diplomacy until our strength is re-established." "But, Elder, the humans have fleets positioned throughout their territory. Any aggressive action could result in massive casualties." "Let them come," Zixthara replied coldly. "I have been developing new biological weapons for 2 centuries, waiting for a worthy test subject. The humans will provide the perfect opportunity to demonstrate why the Zephyrian Empire remains the galaxy's dominant power. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Everyone present understood what had just happened. The Empire was about to escalate the conflict far beyond what anyone had intended, and the consequences would be felt throughout the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the human agricultural world of New Eden, Dr. Sarah Martinez stood in her laboratory, examining the latest test results with growing amazement. As the leading human expert in xenobiology, she had been tasked with understanding how human physiology interacted with Zephyrian biotechnology. "The results are extraordinary," she announced to her research team via holographic conference. "Vex thorium isn't just harmless to humans, it's actively beneficial." Dr. James Chen, Ambassador Chen's younger brother and a specialist in cellular biology, leaned forward in his projection. "How beneficial are we talking about?" Subjects who consumed controlled doses of Vex thorium showed improved cellular efficiency across the board. Enhanced oxygen processing, increased metabolic rate, improved immune response, and faster healing. It's like the compound optimizes human cellular function. "But why?" asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the team's genetics specialist. "What makes human physiology so different from every other known species?" Sarah manipulated her laboratory's display, showing cellular scans at the molecular level. "It comes down to our evolutionary history. Remember, humans evolved on a world with a uniquely oxygen-rich atmosphere. Our cells developed highly efficient systems for processing oxygen under high-pressure conditions." "And Vex thorium?" "Vex thorium works by flooding cells with concentrated molecular oxygen while simultaneously blocking the normal oxygen processing pathways. For most species, this causes immediate cellular death because their systems can't handle the overload. But humans can. Not only can we handle it, but our cells treat it as a kind of superfuel. The concentrated oxygen provides enormous energy reserves, while our natural processing systems continue to function normally. It's like getting twice the benefit of normal respiration." The implications were staggering. James leaned back in his chair, processing the information. "So, essentially, the Zephyrians accidentally created the perfect human enhancement drug?" "That's one way to look at it," Sarah agreed. "But there's more. We've been experimenting with synthesizing compounds similar to vexithorium, and the results suggest we could develop treatments for a wide range of human health issues." "What kind of treatments?" "Enhanced healing for trauma patients, improved athletic performance, better cognitive function under stress, increased resistance to environmental toxins. The applications are nearly limitless." Dr. Tanaka raised a concern that had been bothering her. "But what about the ethical implications? If humans gain significant biological advantages over other species, it could create serious diplomatic problems." "Which is why," a new voice interrupted, "we need to be very careful about how we proceed." The team turned to see Admiral Elena Vasquez, the commander of the Human Defense Fleet, entering Sarah's laboratory. Her presence meant that the conversation had just moved from the realm of pure science into military strategy. "Admiral," Sarah said, standing, "I wasn't expecting you." "The President asked me to personally review your findings," Vasquez replied. "What you've discovered here could change the balance of power in the galaxy. We're just trying to understand the science behind what happened at the council chambers, and that science has military applications that we need to consider very carefully." Vasquez activated her own holographic display, showing fleet positions throughout human space. "Intelligence suggests the Zephyrians are planning a significant escalation, something called Operation Biological Superiority." Sarah felt a chill. "What kind of escalation?" "We're not sure, but it involves Elder Zix Thara personally taking command of Zephyrian forces. According to our intelligence sources, she's been developing biological weapons that make vexithorium look like a mild sedative." Do we know what kind of weapons? Airborne pathogens, contaminated food supplies, waterborne toxins, basically everything that made the Zephyrian Empire feared throughout the galaxy. But these are new variants, designed specifically to counter what they think they learned about human resistance. Dr. Chen spoke up from his projection. But they still don't understand how human physiology actually works. Their new weapons might be just as ineffective as Vexithorium. Or they might be worse, Vasquez replied grimly. We can't assume that human biological advantages extend to every possible Zephyrian creation, which is why we need to be prepared for any eventuality. Sarah looked at her research data with new understanding. You want us to develop countermeasures? I want you to develop everything, Vasquez said firmly. Countermeasures, enhancements, treatments, weapons. Whatever it takes to ensure human survival against the most advanced biological warfare civilization in the galaxy. Admiral, that could take years of research. Doctor, according to our intelligence, we have weeks at most before Zixathera launches her attack. We need solutions now, even if they're imperfect. The weight of responsibility settled over the research team like a heavy blanket. They had gone from studying an interesting biological phenomenon to developing the tools that might determine whether humanity survived its first major galactic conflict. There is one possibility, Sarah said slowly. If Vexithorium enhances human cellular function, we might be able to create a treatment that provides temporary resistance to other biological agents. How temporary? Hours, maybe days. But it would give human populations time to evacuate threatened areas or for medical teams to develop specific countermeasures. Vasquez nodded. It's better than nothing. How quickly can you develop a working treatment? If we focus all our resources on this single application, maybe 2 weeks. You have 1 week, Vasquez replied. After that, I suspect we'll be too busy fighting to worry about research deadlines. As the Admiral left the laboratory, the research team looked at each other with a mixture of determination and fear. They were about to enter a biological arms race with the galaxy's most dangerous species, and the fate of human civilization might depend on their success. But unknown to everyone in the room, the situation was about to become far more complicated than anyone imagined. Deep in Zephyrian space, Elder Zixathera was putting the finishing touches on biological weapons that would test the limits of human adaptability. And in the shadows of both civilizations, other forces were beginning to move, species that saw opportunity in the growing conflict between two of the galaxy's most dynamic powers. The humans and Zephyrians were so focused on each other that they had failed to notice the larger game being played around them. The galaxy was about to become a much more dangerous place, and the true test of human resilience was just beginning. Elder Zixathera stood in the heart of her personal biolaboratory, a massive facility that occupied an entire moon orbiting Zephyr Prime. For 2 centuries, she had been perfecting the art of biological warfare, creating weapons so terrible that even the ruling circle hesitated to authorize their use. Now, facing the humiliation of humanity's resistance to Vexithorium, she finally had the justification she needed. "Status report," she commanded, her voice echoing through the sterile corridors lined with containment units. Dr. Kilmet, her chief biotechnician, approached with obvious nervousness. Working for Zixathera was considered both an honor and a death sentence. Her previous assistants had often become test subjects for her more exotic creations. "Elder, we have completed synthesis of all requested compounds. However, I must express concerns about the simultaneous deployment of multiple biological agents." Zixathera's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Explain your concerns." "Doctor, the interactions between different biological weapons are unpredictable. We could trigger mutations that affect unintended targets or create resistant strains that spread beyond human territories." "Acceptable risks," Zixathera replied coldly. The humans have proven that conventional biological warfare is insufficient. We must use every weapon at our disposal to ensure their complete elimination." She gestured to the containment units surrounding them, each holding a different nightmare. "Show me the final inventory." Dr. Keelmet activated a holographic display that cataloged their arsenal. Unit 1 contains respiratory death, an airborne pathogen that breaks down lung tissue at the molecular level. Unit 2 holds cellular cascade, a contact poison that causes uncontrolled cell division, essentially turning the victim's body into a massive tumor. Unit 3 contains neurological dissolution. "Enough," Zixthera interrupted. "I know what we've created. The question is whether our delivery systems are ready." "Yes, Elder. Our stealth ships are positioned throughout human space. On your command, they will simultaneously contaminate the water supplies of every major human colony. The attacks will appear to be random system failures, not coordinated biological warfare." Zixthera smiled, an expression that would have terrified any being unfortunate enough to witness it. "Excellent. And our intelligence on human defensive preparations?" "Limited, Elder. They've imposed communication blackouts across several systems, and our infiltration attempts have been unsuccessful. However, we believe they're attempting to develop countermeasures based on their analysis of Vex thorium." "Irrelevant," Zixthera declared. "These new compounds operate on completely different principles. Even if they've learned to resist oxygen-based toxins, they'll have no defense against pathogens that attack protein synthesis or neural pathways." What she didn't know was that human intelligence had been tracking Zephyrian movements for weeks. Dr. Sarah Martinez had been working around the clock with her expanded research team, but they weren't just developing defensive measures, they were preparing for something much more ambitious. "The synthesis is complete," Sarah announced to the emergency council session being held in the secure facilities beneath New Eden's capital. President Harrison, Admiral Vasquez, and representatives from every human colony were present via secure holographic link. "What exactly have you created, Doctor?" President Harrison asked. "We've taken the principles behind human resistance to Vex thorium and expanded them into a comprehensive biological enhancement system. In simple terms, we can now temporarily optimize human physiology to resist virtually any biological attack." Admiral Vasquez leaned forward. "How temporarily?" "The basic enhancement lasts about 72 hours. During that time, human immune systems operate at roughly 10 times normal efficiency, cellular repair functions are accelerated, and the body becomes capable of processing and neutralizing most known toxins." "Most known toxins?" Harrison questioned. "We've tested against every Zephyrian biological weapon in our intelligence files," Sarah replied. "The enhancement provides complete immunity to approximately 80% of their arsenal, significant resistance to another 15%, and at least partial protection against the remaining 5%. "And the cost?" Vasquez asked. She had learned to distrust solutions that seemed too perfect. "High metabolic demand. Enhanced humans need approximately 3 times the normal caloric intake, and the process is physically exhausting. After the enhancement wears off, subjects need at least 12 hours of rest to recover." Harrison considered the implications. "How quickly can we distribute this enhancement to human populations?" "That's the challenge, sir. The enhancement requires individual injection and takes about 6 hours to reach full effectiveness. We can't simply add it to water supplies like a vaccine." "What about military applications?" "Already in progress," Vasquez replied. "We've begun enhancing volunteer units from the Colonial Defense Forces. Early results suggest that enhanced humans aren't just resistant to biological weapons, they're significantly more effective in combat situations overall." "More effective how?" "Improved reaction times, enhanced endurance, better coordination, faster healing from injuries. It's not just biological defense, it's human optimization." Sarah added, "We've also discovered something interesting about the enhancement process. Repeated applications seem to have cumulative effects." Subjects who've undergone multiple enhancement cycles show permanently improved baseline capabilities. The implications sent a ripple of excitement and concern through the council chamber. They weren't just talking about temporary protection from Zephyrian attacks. They were discussing the voluntary evolution of human capabilities. "Are there any negative side effects?" Harrison asked. "Some subjects report increased aggression and decreased empathy during enhancement," Sarah admitted. "Nothing dangerous, but it does suggest that the treatment affects psychological as well as physical systems." "And long-term effects?" "Unknown. We simply haven't had enough time for comprehensive studies." But early indicators suggest that enhanced humans may have extended lifespans and improved cognitive function. Admiral Vasquez interrupted the discussion. "Mr. President, we're receiving priority alerts from our deep space monitoring stations. Multiple Zephyrian vessels have been detected moving toward human territories." The mood in the chamber immediately shifted from scientific excitement to military urgency. Harrison straightened in his chair. "Show me." The chamber's main display activated, showing a real-time map of local galactic space. Red indicators marked Zephyrian vessel positions, and their movement patterns made their intentions clear. They were positioning for coordinated strikes against every major human world simultaneously. "How much time do we have?" Harrison asked. "Based on current movement patterns, approximately 18 hours until they reach attack positions," Vasquez replied. "And how many humans can we enhance in 18 hours?" Sarah ran quick calculations. "With our current production capabilities, maybe 50,000 doses, enough for essential personnel and military units, but not enough for general population protection." "Then we prioritize," Harrison decided. "Military first, then emergency services, then key infrastructure personnel." "Dr. Martinez, I'm authorizing emergency production protocols. Use whatever resources you need." "Yes, sir. But, Mr. President, there's something else we should consider." "What?" "The Zephyrians are expecting to face normal humans. They have no idea what enhanced humans are capable of. This could be an opportunity to end the conflict decisively." Vasquez understood immediately. "You're suggesting we let them attack?" "I'm suggesting we let them think they're winning, then demonstrate that their biological supremacy is over permanently." Harrison looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. The decision he made in the next few moments would determine not just the outcome of the current crisis, but humanity's position in the galaxy for generations to come. "Admiral Vasquez, what's the status of our fleet positioning?" "Our defensive formations remain in place around all core worlds. The Third Fleet is still maintaining position near Zephyrian space, but they're under orders not to engage unless directly attacked. And if the Zephyrians proceed with biological attacks on our colonies, standard protocol calls for immediate evacuation of affected areas and retaliatory strikes against Zephyrian military targets." Harrison nodded slowly. "Dr. Martinez, how confident are you in your enhancement system?" "Very confident for resistance to known Zephyrian weapons, moderately confident for unknown variants." "Then we proceed with controlled exposure," Harrison decided. "We evacuate non-essential personnel from likely target worlds, enhance everyone who remains, and document everything. If this works, we'll have proof that humanity can survive anything the Zephyrians can deploy against us." "And if it doesn't work?" Vasquez asked quietly. "Then we learn from our mistakes and make sure it never happens again." The next 18 hours passed in a frenzy of activity. Enhancement doses were distributed to military personnel and volunteers throughout human space. Evacuation ships carried civilians from the most vulnerable colonies to secure facilities. Intelligence networks monitored Zephyrian preparations and tried to anticipate their exact strategy. On New Eden, Dr. Martinez watched her enhanced volunteers prepare for what might be the most important experiment in human history. The volunteers included herself, She had insisted on taking the enhancement to personally monitor its effects during a real biological attack. "How do you feel?" she asked Colonel James Wright, the enhanced commander of New Eden's defense forces. "Like I could run a marathon while solving calculus problems," he replied with a grin. "The mental clarity is almost as impressive as the physical improvements." "Any concerns?" "Just one. I keep wanting to find something to fight. It's not overwhelming, but there's definitely an increased aggressive drive." Sarah nodded and made notes on her tablet. The psychological effects of the enhancement were still not fully understood, but they seemed manageable. Her tablet chimed with an incoming priority message from Admiral Vasquez. "Dr. Martinez, Zephyrian stealth ships have begun their attack runs. We're detecting biological agent releases at 7 different sites across human space. This is it. Within hours, the first reports began arriving." The Zephyrian attacks were more sophisticated than anyone had expected. Multiple agents deployed simultaneously, targeting different biological systems, and designed to overwhelm human medical capabilities. On the agricultural world of New Harvest, the water supply had been contaminated with something that caused immediate respiratory distress in unenhanced humans. Emergency medical teams worked frantically to treat evacuated civilians, while enhanced defenders remained completely unaffected. On the industrial world of Titan Station, an airborne pathogen designed to attack neural pathways had been released in the main population center. Enhanced personnel reported mild headaches that faded within minutes, while unenhanced individuals in secure areas showed no symptoms thanks to environmental filters. On New Eden itself, Zixathara had deployed her most exotic creation, a compound that supposedly caused uncontrolled cellular growth. Enhanced defenders not only showed no ill effects, but actually reported improved healing rates for minor injuries. As reports flooded in from across human space, a pattern emerged that shocked everyone involved. The enhancement system wasn't just providing resistance to Zephyrian biological weapons, it was turning them into beneficial treatments. Dr. Martinez stood in her laboratory, staring at test results that defied everything she thought she knew about biology. "Admiral, you need to see this." Vasquez's image appeared on the holographic communicator. "What have you found, Doctor?" "The Zephyrians' new weapons aren't just ineffective against enhanced humans, they're actively improving human performance. The respiratory pathogen is increasing lung efficiency. The neural agent is enhancing cognitive function. The cellular growth compound is accelerating healing and muscle development." "How is that possible?" "I think the Zephyrians made a fundamental error in their understanding of human biology. They assumed that because Vexithorium failed, they needed more powerful toxins. But what they actually needed was completely different attack mechanisms." "Meaning?" "Meaning they've accidentally created the most effective human enhancement drugs in galactic history. If we can synthesize these compounds safely, we could permanently improve human capabilities across the board." The communication was interrupted by priority alerts from across human space. But these weren't distress calls. They were status updates from enhanced defenders who were not only surviving the biological attacks, but actually requesting permission to pursue the Zephyrian stealth ships that had attacked them. Admiral Vasquez realized that the galaxy's balance of power had just shifted dramatically once again. The Zephyrians had played their final card and lost. Now humanity held advantages that no one had anticipated. "Doctor," she said quietly, "I think it's time to let the Zephyrians know exactly what they've accomplished." On her flagship orbiting Zephyr Prime, Elder Zixathara stared at incoming reports with growing disbelief. Every single biological attack had failed catastrophically. Not only were the humans surviving, but they appeared to be thriving. "This is impossible," she snarled at Dr. Kylmet. "Our agents should have wiped out every human in the targeted areas within hours." "Elder, the humans appear to have developed some form of universal biological resistance. Our most advanced weapons are having no measurable effect." "Then we escalate again. Prepare the final protocol. Dr. Kylemet's face went pale. Elder, the final protocol has never been tested. It could kill everything within light years of deployment. Acceptable losses, Zixthera replied coldly. If we cannot defeat the humans through biological warfare, then we ensure that no one survives to remember our failure. But before she could give the final order, her communications officer interrupted with an urgent transmission. Elder, we're receiving a message from the human fleet. They're requesting immediate surrender of all Zephyrian forces. Surrender? Zixthera laughed harshly. They have no authority to demand anything. Ignore the transmission. Elder, the message includes detailed scans of our biological weapons and evidence of their effects on human populations. Show me. The main display activated, showing a recording of human defenders working normally in areas that should have been contaminated death zones. Worse, the humans appeared to be more capable than before, moving faster, thinking more clearly, and showing no signs of fatigue even after hours of exposure. How? Zixthera whispered. The recording shifted to show Ambassador Chen addressing the camera directly. Elder Zixthera, your biological weapons have taught us something important about human potential. We're no longer the same species you tried to poison 3 months ago. We're something new, something better, and we have your weapons to thank for it. The recording continued, showing enhanced humans performing feats that bordered on superhuman, lifting weights that should have required mechanical assistance, solving complex problems in seconds, recovering from injuries in minutes instead of days. Your final gift to humanity, Chen continued, has been the tools to unlock our true capabilities. We're stronger, smarter, and more resilient than ever before. And we're grateful. The transmission ended with a simple message. The age of biological warfare is over. The age of human enhancement has begun. Choose wisely. Elder Zixthera stared at the blank screen, finally understanding the magnitude of what had happened. The Zephyrian Empire's greatest strength had become humanity's greatest advantage. 3 millennia of biological supremacy had ended not with conquest, but with obsolescence. In that moment, she realized that the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had evolved beyond the reach of conventional biological warfare, and they had done it using Zephyrian weapons as the catalyst. The age of human dominance was just beginning, and the Zephyrian Empire would have to decide whether to adapt or be left behind by the species they had tried to destroy. As reports continued to flood in from across human space, one thing became clear. The humans hadn't just survived the ultimate test of their biological defenses. They had transformed it into the foundation for their future evolution. The galaxy had a new apex species, and they had the Zephyrians to thank for making it possible.